Shema Israel Yo Hinu Yahweh Kad Vef Cho Yahweh Heka Kola Veka Kona Sheka Koma Deka Hero Israel Yahweh Elohim Yahweh is one, and you serve Yahweh Elohim with our heart, with our being, and with our strength.
Okay. All right. I want you to turn to Luke chapter 11 and verse 1 to start with. Been thinking about these things because of what we've been studying, especially on Friday nights, and watching more news lately, and I didn't see very much good news this week. Luke chapter 11 and verse 1, it came to be while Yahshua was praying in a certain place, when he paused, one of his taught ones came and said to him, Master, teach us to pray, as Yachanan also taught his taught ones. And he said to them, when you pray, say, and when he says this, he's not telling them to repeat this rote over and over again like we did in so many other denominations we were in, some of us. He said, say, Our Father in the heavens, let your name be made kadosh, set apart. Let your reign come. Let your desire be done on earth as it is in heaven. And, of course, what he's doing there is giving a pattern of prayer. And, he's telling us that we ought to acknowledge and praise the Father, that we ought to praise his name, and we should pray for his kingdom to come, for his reign, because we certainly can look around and figure out today that the reign that's taking place, and I don't mean the reign that we're getting here today, but the REIGN that's taking place in this world is not something that we should want to continue. And the more we look at it, the more it looks like it probably won't continue. So that's a good thing. You look at what happened in the stock market this week, and all the money that was lost, not only in the stock market, but in the natural disasters that have taken place all over this land, in the central part of the country, and on the West Coast, and they're supposed to have more of it on the West Coast. People's homes being washed away, their lives being destroyed pretty much, and somewhere along the line, someone is going to put a dollar amount on that, and it isn't going to be pretty. And then, of course, we could solve all of those problems if we just had the right person win Powerball. Next week, not this week, because this week it's only 800 million. Next week's supposed to be over $1 billion. So all they have to do is donate that money and they could fix most of these people's homes. And of course that's going to happen, right? No, that's not going to happen. So these are the kinds of things that Yahshua was alerting his disciples that they needed to be praying about, not in these words, but in these ideas and these concepts. Let your reign come, let your desire be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us day by day our daily bread. So we should never fail to thank Yahweh and praise Yahweh for what he gives us, and to ask him to continue to provide that for us. Forgive us our sins, for we also forgive everyone who is indebted to us, right? He says that's the way it should be. Do not lead us into trial. And we've been studying about the tribulation, and that's the kind of thing he's telling us to be aware of and to be praying about. But finally, rescue us from the wicked one. And of course, we learned it in the King James, deliver us from evil. And then many years later, a lot of us learned that it really is talking about delivering us from the evil one. From the evil one. The Greek word for deliver us here is, and this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about just this one part of this prayer that Yahshua tells us to be vigilant and diligent about. And when we've been studying in the book of Revelation about the timeline and how things are going to take place, and we can see that Satan is going to become more and more angry as we get closer to the end. and as there are a few more of the true believers of Yahweh, and in Revelation 12, how he's going to go out and attack those people, we can see that that's, we're coming up to that kind of a situation in our lives. So we need to be aware of what we need to be praying for Yahshua and Yahweh to deliver us from that evil and that evil one. The Greek word is ruomai, and it means to draw oneself, to rescue, to deliver. In a middle voice, it can mean the idea of a current, deliver or deliverer, to rescue, to hook into the right current so that the wrong current can be eliminated. The Hebrew words, and of course the New Testament wasn't written in Greek anyway, so it really wasn't this word. It was either a word kalatz or natsal. Very similar meaning to the Greek word. And if you were to check the New Testament, the Hebrew New Testament, you'd find a form of this second word, natsal. But you notice it means to draw off, this kalatz, or to be saved, to be pulled out, to be rescued or delivered or set free or taken away from. Or if it's natsal, a little bit differently, but pretty much similar, to deliver from enemies or trouble or death, to deliver from sin and guilt, to be plucked out, to strip oneself, to strip away from. And so that's what we're thinking of when we're saying, deliver us from the evil one, to shield us from that evil one. What was the example of Yahshua in this regard? And I don't think that we often think about this, but we, for years, have had the saying, I guess, did John originate that? If there's not a physical explanation, it must be spiritual. If there's not a physical explanation for something that goes on in your life, it must be a spiritual attack of some sort or another. And we get that from the example of Yahshua with this regard of being delivered from the evil one. Notice in Matthew chapter 8 and verse 16. When evening had come, they brought to Yahshua many who were, and our scripture says demon-possessed. And I think that's what it says in the King James, something similar to that. There's no word in Hebrew for being demon-possessed. This is one word in Greek. And it's this diamon zomai. So it's a verbal form of being bothered by a demon. In Hebrew, I think that you probably would recognize in the Hebrew sense, if you've gotten in touch with your Hebrew roots and in the Hebrew sense, it's being bothered by an evil spirit, a ruach. And that's, if you look in the Hebrew New Testament, that's what you'll find here. You won't find a single word. You'll find a pair of words, a ruach of a ra'ah ruach, an evil spirit. So they were bringing to Yahshua many who were, in the Greek, demon-possessed, but in the Hebrew, bothered by wicked spirits. And he, Yahshua, cast out the spirits with a word and healed all who were sick. So the sense here is that the sickness that they were suffering from was brought about by the activity of evil spirits, raw ruach. In verse 17, that it might be filled what was spoken by Yeshayahu the prophet, saying, he himself took our weaknesses and bore our sicknesses. Now you see, the sense here, if you read this, is that the sicknesses were caused by these evil spirits. They actually cause physical sickness. So let's go to verse 28 of Matthew chapter 8. Well, what are the mechanics? What are the mechanics of this, of being bothered by an evil spirit? Everyone has spirit. No, even animals have a spirit. When they die, their spirit just dies in the ground. But we have a spirit, humans have a spirit, that allows Yahweh to communicate with us on a spiritual level. It's how he calls. If someone didn't have a spirit, if someone was void of the spirit of man, Yahweh wouldn't be able to call them. Calling is a spiritual activity by Yahweh, using his Ruach to interact with the Ruach that he has placed in man, that is going to make it possible for man to be created in his image and after his likeness. No animal can be created in Yahweh's image and Yahweh's likeness. Sorry, Billy. Not your brother Billy, but Billy Graham. No, the dogs aren't going to go to heaven. They're not going to be changed into spirit, immortal dogs and cats. So don't get too attached to your animals, because only man has that spirit. And when we die, it says that Yahweh takes care of that spirit in some way or fashion. So there's that spirit that we have, but there are also evil spirits. There's Yahweh's Ruach, but there are Ra Ruachot. There are evil spirits. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 1, first, before we go to Matthew 8. Shaul says, "You were dead in trespasses and sins in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the ruler of the authority of the air, of the Ruach that is now working in the sons of disobedience." So there is the source of the wicked Ruach, the wicked spirit. It's Hasatan, and we all know that. We all know that. Sometimes I think that we kind of sense and know that there is, because we have this saying, if you can't explain it physically, then it must be a spirit. And this is what we're talking about. The mechanics of how that evil Ruach affects the Ruach that Yahweh put on us, which he intends to be kadosh, set apart. But that spirit is there, and that spirit can interact. And it can possess. It can just get in and mess up the works. That's how it works. And that's why sometimes that Ruach has to be resisted. If it's an evil Ruach, it has to be resisted, cast out, or at least resisted to the point where it stops bothering the individual. This is what happened. Sometimes, some people don't like to talk about this, but it's a fact. And don't you think that when Hasatan gets angry and unleashes his attacks on the people of Yahweh, as told by Revelation chapter 12, don't you think that's how it's going to work? And that we're going to have to be asking Yahweh to deliver us from that. So some of us were taught the meaning of deliver us from the evil one, but we were only told to pray about it and then go on and then don't think about it. Why were we not told taught to study the way those powers of the air work? Why weren't we taught that? Now, some of us were, to one degree or another, but we hardly, we don't mention it really often, but those people who were taught that, say, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, they're more likely to come back to it and realize that there's a spiritual end of this. This is not a physical thing. But most people aren't taught about it because of fear. The fear of it. I mean, it is scary. And what happens in our society, we have all kinds of movies and television programs about this spiritual side, and it's kind of scary. And we have a whole genre of horror horror stuff. And so that tends to scare people. To some people, it hardens them, and they don't believe it. They think it's just, it's just part of this horror thing. But it's not real. But it is real. And we've been reading and studying about it in the book of Revelation. Matthew chapter 8 and verse 28. This is how real it is. I mean, this is not just some fairy tale. This is a true account. When Yahshua came to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, to the country of the Girgashites, 2 demon-possessed ones met him, coming out of the tombs, very fierce, so that no one was able to pass by that way. So here is the connection, scripturally, with evil spirits in graveyards, which we come up with in our society. I don't mean we in Yahweh's congregation, but in our society around Halloween. I mean, don't most people think that graveyards are haunted? Because they think that the spirits of the dead are coming up. But here's what, if there are any spirits coming up, these are the spirits. These are the spirits. And see, verse 29, Matthew 8:29, they cried out, saying, "What have we to do with you, Yahshua, son of Elohim? Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" What have we been studying where we see where that appointed time is? When they're cast into the lake of fire. They know what their end is going to be, but they know it's not yet. And so while it's not yet, they're going to play as much havoc or raise as much havoc with the ruach of man that is potentially fusible with the ruach of Yahweh to become sons of Elohim. They don't like that. Have you come to torture us before the appointed time? And at a distance from them there was a herd of many pigs feeding. And the demons begged him, saying, "If you cast us out, send us into the herd of swine or pigs." And he said to them, "Go." And they, coming out, went into the herd of pigs, and see, the entire herd of pigs rushed down the steep place into the sea and died in the water. And the herdsmen fled and went away into the city and reported all this and about those possessed by demons. So there was the report of those who were possessed by demons and the fact that Yahshua ordered them out. Now you'd think everybody would be happy about that, wouldn't you? Yeah. And see, all the city came to meet Yahshua, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their borders. They doesn't sound like they were very happy about it, does it? Just don't bother us with this. And isn't that the way our society is for the most part? Nobody wants to hear about this. Nobody wants to be involved with it. Just turn your back on it and walk away and just forget about it. Chapter 9, Matthew chapter 9 and verse 32. As they were going out, see, they brought to Yahshua a man dumb and demon-possessed. So the demon, the evil ruach, caused this individual to not be able to speak. So, you could take a person like that to the doctor, and the doctor might examine this person, and the doctor would say, "Well, I just can't understand it. There's just no physical reason why this should be." So then we would know, if there's no physical reason, then it must be a spiritual reason. And the spiritual reason would be the presence of an evil spirit or an evil ruach. And when the demon was cast out, the dumb one spoke. So that was the source, and that can be a source. And unfortunately, I guess if we could use that term, there are lots of places in our society where demons have people bound up. And if Yahshua were able to come and walk through some of the hallways of these hospitals or institutions and cast out the demons, there would be all kinds of people who would find a normal life, because their lives are not normal. Now it comes to our attention when they attack us. And they will attack us because we're the ones that are closest to coming to the realization of what Yahweh's Ruach can do with our Ruach. And they don't like that. So when the demon was cast out, the dumb one spoke, and the crowds marveled, saying it was never seen like this in Israel. Well, of course, it had been seen from time to time. The dead were even raised, but it didn't really seem to make a very big difference in the society of Israel way back then. Matthew 10 and verse 1. Matthew 10 and verse 1. Yahshua, having called his 12 taught ones near, he gave them authority over unclean spirits. You a taught one? You a taught one of Yahweh, of Yahshua? So if he gave them authority over unclean spirits, can you claim authority over unclean spirits? And that is what you are actually praying for when you follow the instruction of Yahshua and ask Yahweh, deliver us from the evil one. Give us authority over the evil one who will try to control, or the evil ones who will try to control in our lives. He gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal every disease and every bodily weakness. Some illness is due to bodily weakness. Some is not. For some illnesses, there is no physical explanation. So we have both of these things that we're battling, but we need to ask Yahweh to give us discernment so we know when we claim the authority to cast out the evil Ruach. Mark chapter 16. Mark chapter 16, beginning in verse 15. Mark 16 and verse 15. And he said to them, a similar situation that we just read about, but he said to his disciples, go into all the world, proclaim the Tov Basar, the good news, to every creature. He who has believed and has been immersed shall be saved, but he who has not believed shall be condemned. So if you preach the gospel, if you sow seeds, and if someone understands and they believe, what do? They do it, don't they? But if they understand it and they don't do it, so that's the one that doesn't believe, because believe is to be obedient to, then they are condemned. And if they are condemned, then which resurrection will they be in? If they understood and they chose not to believe, then they will be in that resurrection to the lake of fire that is the second death. These signs shall accompany the ones who believe. In my name they shall cast out these unclean, evil spirits, ruachot. They shall speak with renewed tongues. These signs shall accompany the ones who believe. In my name they shall cast out evil spirits. They shall speak with renewed tongue. They shall take up snakes, and if they drink any Kool-Aid, oops, that's not what it says, is it? If they drink any deadly drink, it shall by no means hurt them, and they shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall get well. And sometimes the laying on of hands will require casting out a spirit, and sometimes it will just be for the esteem of Yahweh, that Yahweh's Ruach can heal a physical defect, sometimes not caused by an evil spirit. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 22. So these are examples of Yahshua in his life. I mean, you think of how many examples of this there are, and actually how short the Gospels are. The stories of Yeshua's life, the accounts of Yeshua, these are pretty frequent, aren't they? By volume in the words that are written about Yeshua. Then they brought to him, in Matthew 12, verse 22, one who was demon-possessed, blind and dumb, and he healed him. so that the blind and dumb man both spoke and saw. He was possessed. How could he do that? The only way he could do that is to cast out the evil spirit. And all the crowds were amazed and said, "Is this the son of David?" But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "This one does not cast out demons except by Beelzebub, the ruler of demons." A special demon who was the lord of the flies, if you will, Beelzebub. And Yahshua knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every reign divided against itself is laid waste, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Hasatan casts out Hasatan, he is divided against himself. How then does his reign stand? And if I by Beelzebub do cast out unclean spirits or evil spirits, by whom do your sons cast them out? Because of this they shall be your judges. But if I cast out unclean or evil ruachot, by the ruach of Elohim, then the reign of Elohim has come upon you, or come near to you. Or how is one able to enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods, unless he first binds the strong man, and then he shall plunder his house? So sometimes we have to bind the strong man. There are strong men, strong ruachot, that are raw, that are evil, and they have to be bound, and they have to be nullified or made inoperable. Chapter 12 and verse 43. Now when the unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places, and seeking rest finds none. Then it says, I shall return to my house from which I came, and when it comes, it finds it empty, swept, and decorated. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other ruachot, more raw or wicked than itself, and they enter and dwell there, and the last of that man is worse than the first. So it shall be with this wicked generation. And it was not more true of any generation than the generation that we live in, when we are getting close to when Hasatan is going to unleash his fury on Yahweh's people. Chapter 15, Matthew chapter 15 and verse 22. And see, a woman of Canaan came from those borders and cried out to him, saying, Have compassion on me, O Master, son of David. My daughter is badly influenced by wicked spirits. But he did not answer her a word. And his taught ones came and asked him, saying, Send her away, because she cries after us. And he answering said, and in a way it looks like they were asking him, will you just do what the woman is asking and send her away? Because he says, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So it looks like they were asking him to cast out the demons and send her away. But he said, I wasn't sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And she came and was bowing to him, saying, Master, help me. And he answering said, It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. But she said, Yea, Master, for even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table. And because she kept coming to him, and because she reasoned this way, he answering said to her, O woman, your belief is great. Not that which came from her heart, but the action, the belief that she expressed by acting to reason with him. Let it be to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. In order for that to be accomplished, those demons had to be vanquished. And he wasn't even near. He wasn't even in the proximity, because he was able to function in the spiritual realm. Chapter 17 and verse 14. When they came to the crowd, a man came up, kneeling down to him and saying, Master, have compassion on my son, for he is an epileptic and suffers badly, for he often falls in the fire and often in the water. And I brought him to your taught ones, but they were unable to heal him. There's no mention here of evil ruach yet. Yahshua answering said in verse 17, O generation unbelieving and perverted, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him here to me. Now, he's not necessarily talking to his disciples here. He's talking to everybody who is around. And Yahshua rebuked the demon, the wicked spirit, and he came out of him, and the child was healed from that very hour. So this is recognized as a real influence. The fact that these wicked beings, wicked spirits, wicked ruachot spirits would come and mess with the spirit that Yahweh gave specially to human beings as opposed to animals. The spirit that, they were able to go and interact with the spirits that Yahweh gave to animals, weren't they? That's what they did when they occupied those pigs. The only way they could do it is to occupy the spirit that was in those pigs, those swine. But that was not the spirit that was akin to what Yahweh's spirit can do for man. Matthew 10:25. It is enough for the taught one to become like his teacher and a servant like his master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more those of his household? So this is a real influence. Matthew 11:18. Yachanan came neither eating nor drinking, and they said he has a demon. So everybody recognized that there were evil spirits. So in our day, Hollywood has everyone scared into avoidance or unbelief, or both. Matthew 13:24. Another parable Yahshua put forth before them, saying, the reign of the heavens has become like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed darnel among the wheat and went away. And when the blade sprouted and bore fruit, then the darnel also appeared. So Yahshua explains this parable, and just like he explained the parable of the sower, we know and we recognize that we can sow seed, but we know that sometimes evil spirits can come and snatch that seed away. There's the real possibility of influence. In Matthew chapter 13 and verse 27, we read, and the servant of the master of the house came and said, Master, did you not sow tov seed in the field? From where does the darnel spring? And he said, a man, an enemy, did this. And the servant said to him, do you wish then that we go and gather them up? And Yahshua said, no, lest while you gather up the darnel, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and at the time of the harvest I shall say to the reapers, first gather the darnel, bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my granary. So he explains this in verse 36. Having sent the crowds away, Yahshua went into the house, and his taught ones came, saying, explain to us the parable of the darnel of the field. And he said, answering, he said to them, he who is sowing the good seed is the son of Adam, the ones who are able to sow by the spirit of the son of Adam, the ruach of Yahweh. And the field is the world, the good seed, these are the sons of the rain, but the darnel are the sons of the wicked one. And the enemy who sowed them is Hasatan, the devil. And the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the messengers. As the darnel then is gathered and burned in the fire, so it shall be at the end of the age. The son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his reign all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness. This is what we've been studying in the book of Revelation. And shall throw them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous shall shine forth as the sun in the reign of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So here we are, we're studying the end time, and we should be reminding ourselves of this statement that Yahshua made when he taught his disciples to pray, deliver us from the evil one, because that's what we're involved with as we get closer and closer to the end. John 14 in verse 12. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I shall do, he shall also do. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go to my Father. So doesn't it appear that Yahshua had real substance in mind when he taught his disciples to pray, deliver us from the evil one? Ephesians 6 and verse 12, Paul also taught about this. Ephesians 6 and verse 12. He said, because we do not struggle against flesh and blood, but sometimes we do. But most of the time we're struggling against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies, or in the spiritual realm, just on the other side of the portals, somewhere in this room. Hopefully in this room, we have had the Tov Ruachot come in and are influencing us here today. 2 Corinthians 10 and verse 4, verses 4 and 5. For the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim for overthrowing strongholds. We have the authority. We can claim the authority. And that's what we're praying for when we ask Yahweh to deliver us from the evil one. Overthrowing reasonings and every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim. Taking captive every thought to make it obedient to the Messiah. Satan has many, many ways to try to get to us, try to disturb our Sabbaths, try to disturb our life, try to tear apart our families, try to get us to betray one another, all of those different things. In Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 27, we're going to study this as we come to this in the Torah. A man or a woman in whom there is a medium, or who are spiritists, shall certainly be put to death. So there are actually people who work with that dark side, if you will, and seek out, like Saul did. Like Saul sought out the medium. We're going to read about that in just a minute, and what happened to him because of that. But there are people who want to try to use that. People who use Ouija boards. People who play table up. Most of you probably don't even know what table up is. But it's another thing like you know what a Ouija board is, right? Where they have this circle thing and they've got an alphabet on a board, and they let a spirit guide them around and spell words and prophesy. It's creepy stuff. But there are people who do that. There are people who do that. And that's what they're doing. And this is what the scripture says to do with those people. Supposedly, we had a first lady who consulted mediums. And I don't think we did this to her, but we probably should have. You know, this is what the scripture says. They shall be put to death. Stone them with stones. Their blood is upon them. Saul did it, First Chronicles chapter 10 and verse 13. Saul died for his trespass, which he had trespassed against Yahweh, because he did not guard the word of Yahweh, and also for asking a medium to make inquiry. When he asked a medium to make inquiry for him, he brought on himself this death penalty in Leviticus chapter 20. And this is the record of that being carried out. And did not inquire of Yahweh, so he put him to death and turned the reign over to Dawid, son of Yeshai. So there are lots of examples that show that this was not just some minor thing that could be swept under the table, but it's something that we should be aware of, and it is something that we are to incorporate into our pattern of prayer. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time here going through a number of Psalms. It might surprise you. I know that from time to time somebody might do you dirt in the world, and you might think that it's just, that's just a wicked person. But you know what? It could be an attack. And I'm going to show you from the scriptures that it's actually tov to follow David's example and to pray against those enemies. Now, one thing I like about James Block's songs that we listen to, is that he actually has a number of these songs that are deliverance prayers. And I'm telling you, I mean, they do stick in your head, don't they? And they're wonderful. And you'll recognize some of those in some of these scriptures that I'm going to read here. Let's go to the book of Psalms and read a number of these psalms. And I'm certain I don't have all of them in here, but you'll see this is the kind of thing that you are to incorporate into your prayer in the part that says, "Deliver us from the evil one." Psalm 6 and verse 4. Return, O Yahweh, rescue my life. Rescue. That's that word. That is the deliverance. That's the deliver word. Rescue my life. Oh, save me for your kindness' sake. That's a prayer. That's a real prayer that you can pray and incorporate those ideas and words in deliver us from the evil one. Psalm 7 and verse 1. O Yahweh, my Elohim, in you I have taken refuge. Save me from my pursuers and deliver me. And deliver me. More deliverance. Psalm 17 and verse 13. Now, sometimes this was David praying because Saul was pursuing him. Sometimes it was other enemies. And sometimes it's not David at all. Sometimes it's somebody else whose words have been recorded for us as deliverance prayers. Psalm 17:13. Arise, O Yahweh, confront him, cause him to bend, deliver my being from the wrong by your sword. There's the two-edged sword. We hear that in that Hallelujah song, right? Psalm 22 and verse 4. Our fathers trusted in you, they trusted, and you delivered them. When Israel trusted in Yahweh, Yahweh delivered. They didn't trust in Yahweh very often, did they? Not in their whole history. Psalm 25 and verse 20. Oh, guard my life and deliver me. Let me not be ashamed, for I have taken refuge in you. And sometimes people will do things in your life that will, they'll be setting out to embarrass you or to attack you, and you can pray against that. Psalm 31, verses 1 and 2 and 15. In you, O Yahweh, I have taken refuge. Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in your righteousness. Incline your ear to me. Deliver me speedily. Be a rock of refuge to me, a house of defense to save me. See how many times the psalmists are praying this, deliver us from the evil one. My times, verse 15, are in your hand. Deliver me from the hand of my enemies and from those who pursue me. And some of you have been attacked on your jobs by a person who somehow is plugged into the evil spirits of this world. Psalm 33:18. See, the eye of Yahweh is on those fearing him, on those waiting for his kindness. So claim that. To deliver their being from death, not always from death, but your being can be delivered from the wicked that people have foisted upon you. And to keep them alive during scarcity of food. Psalm 37 and verse 40. Yahweh does keep them and deliver them. He delivers them from the wrongdoers and saves them from the wrongdoers because they took refuge in him. Not the wrongdoers, but the ones he's delivering. Psalm 40 and verse 13. Be pleased, O Yahweh, to deliver me. O Yahweh, hasten to help me. So when you get discouraged because of attacks that people have foisted upon you, go to these psalms. Let Yahweh relieve your depression by reading these words from the Psalms. Psalm 41 and verse 2. Yahweh does guard him and keep him alive. He is blessed on the earth, and you do not hand him over to the desire of his enemies. So whatever the enemy wished upon you, don't receive it. Don't receive it. Psalm 43 and verse 1. Rule me rightly, O Elohim, and plead my cause against a nation without kindness. O deliver me from a man of deceit and unrighteousness. Oh, we just lost the Skype people. Yeah. Psalm 51:14. Deliver me from blood guilt, O Elohim. Elohim of my deliverance, let my tongue sing aloud of your righteousness. Psalm 59 and 1. Deliver me from my enemies, O my Elohim. Set me on high from those who rise up against me. Psalm 69 and verse 17. Do not hide your face from your servant, for I am in distress. Answer me speedily. Psalm 70 and verse 1. O Elohim, deliver me, hasten to my help, O Yahweh. Let those who seek my life be ashamed and abashed. You don't have to specify how Yahweh is going to let them be ashamed and abashed. Just let them be ashamed and abashed. Let those who are desiring my evil be turned back and humiliated. Psalm 71 and verse 1. In you, O Yahweh, I have taken refuge. Let me never be ashamed. In your righteousness, deliver and rescue me. Incline your ear to me and save me. Be to me a rock to dwell in, to go into continually. You have given the command to save me, for you are my rock and my stronghold. Rescue me, O my Elohim, out of the hand of the wrong, out of the hand of the unrighteous and cruel. You see, Satan is perpetrating all of this on you, or can be, and this is your rescue. This is your deliverance. Pray to Yahweh for deliverance. Psalm 79 and verse 9. Help us, O Elohim of our deliverance, for the sake of the esteem of your name, and deliver us and cover over our sins for your name's sake. Psalm 91 and verse 1. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of the Almighty, he is saying of Yahweh, my refuge and my stronghold, my Elohim in whom I trust. Psalm 109, verse 21. He who dwells in the secret... I just read that one, didn't I? Psalm 109, 21. But you, O Yahweh, Master, deal with me for your name's sake, because your kindness is Tov, deliver me. Psalm 116, 4. Then I called upon the name of Yahweh. O Yahweh, I pray to you, deliver my being. I wonder where Yahshua got that idea, huh? He put it right here in the mouth of David. Psalm 119, 153. See my affliction and deliver me, for I have not forgotten your Torah. Psalm 119, 170. Let my prayer come before you. Deliver me according to your word. Psalm 140, verse 1. Rescue me, O Yahweh, from men of evil and women. Preserve me from men of violence. Psalm 142, 6. Listen to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Psalm 143, verse 9. Deliver me from my enemies. O Yahweh, I take refuge in you. And finally, Psalm 144, 7 and 11. Send forth your hand from above, rescue me, and deliver me out of great waters from the hand of foreigners. Rescue me and deliver me, in verse 11, from the hand of foreigners, whose mouth has spoken falsehood, and whose right hand is a right hand of lies. So when Yahshua said, pray like this, and one of the things that he told them to pray was, deliver us from the evil one, these are the kinds of things that he's talking about. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you pray for deliverance from the evil one. Deliver us, rescue me from the wicked one. So may Yahweh let this be firmly in your mind and not to be forgotten. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you, give you his favor. May Yahweh lift up his countenance over you and give you his peace. Yivu rekeka Yahweh va'ishmereka. Ya'er Yahweh panavaleka vikaneka. Yasa Yahweh panavaleka v'yasem l'ka shalom. Be encouraged.